Pod Populi, podcast for the people.
I'm running on nothing but faith. There's things far too great that I want to accomplish. I'm hoping 25 hours a day, but something good works out, and I'm just like, dang. Think everything's gonna be okay. Yeah, I'm like, dang. Think you might just know the way. I'm like, dang.
Welcome to Dang.
Dang. And it's
Okay.
a matter of perspective.
Well, you know, the world would be a much calmer, happier place if we would all just agree that my perspective is the right one.
You're probably absolutely wrong. But okay, if she says so.
All right, so let's talk about that. That's what we're talking about today, is how when people are disagreeing,
Yes.
it's important to remember that your perspectives can often be different, and that makes you see the world differently.
Well, yeah, it's because usually your perspective comes from what you've gone through in life.
Right.
You know, that's where the perspective comes from. So one person's analogy may not be the other person. If a person was, a spoon-fed with a silver spoon in their mouth, they don't know the perspective of a person who had to scratch and grind their way to get to where they're gotten to.
Right.
That takes time for them to figure that out. So explain it. Do this analogy that you have written down here. Do this. Say this one.
Oh.
Okay. So go ahead.
I'm going to read it because
go ahead.
actually it's funny.
Okay.
And it was written by the AI.
Okay.
I asked for an illustration of what we were trying to talk about.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, so it says, so picture this. Todd and I are in the kitchen, and we're debating the proper way to load the dishwasher. I'm over here meticulously placing each plate and bowl like it's a game of Tetris, everything lined up perfectly, ready for optimal cleaning. And Todd just tosses things in like he's playing dishwasher Jenga. So I say, you're doing it wrong. And he's like, no, you're doing it wrong. And before you know it, we're deep in a full-blown dishwasher war. But here's the thing. Neither of us is actually wrong. His way works for him. My way works for me. And the dishes still get clean. Well, mostly. Todd's forks are questionable.
See?
This got me thinking, how often do we treat different perspectives like battles where someone has to win? What if instead we just said, your way's not wrong, it's just different? Wouldn't that save us a lot of stress and maybe a little less passive-aggressive dishwasher reloading?
Of course it would, but it's tough.
I love this story, but actually none of it is true because Piper is the one that loads the dishwasher at our house.
But and if you load the dishes in wrong, she re-puts them.
Well, she doesn't even tell you that it's wrong. She asks us to put our things in the dishwasher all day.
And then she redoes them.
And then she reloads it at night.
And see, that, I'm okay with that. You know what I mean? Because I got to put them in the dishwasher without being told how to put them in the dishwasher. And then if she wants to re-put them back herself, she thinks this is a better way, then you go ahead and do it.
Poor Piper's OCD is just like running her poor
but
life.
that's the thing.
And she's going to be leaving, and we're going to have to go back to loading and doing the dishes ourselves.
That's going to be...
Because she's growing up.
It's going to be tough because we have some kids who decide to leave things everywhere. It's only one usually that does that, but... Won't mention no names. I love that kid, but he's a lot like my other son was. The oldest one was.
We only have one son.
No, we don't. We have two.
I mean, at the house. So by just saying him, you
that's pretty
you
pointed
gave
out.
away.
But Spencer was just like that too. Spencer
would leave his stuff everywhere.
Oh my gosh, it was a nightmare. So you know what I used to start doing? Now when I go to his house, I leave my stuff everywhere. I get like 4 or 5 cups. I just leave them everywhere. Cause I go, Spencer, don't forget to get your cups. He goes, oh yeah, I get it. And then I go in his room and I'm gathering up 50,000 dishes. I'm like, come on, man. So you're smart by enacting the rule they can't eat in their room. That's good.
I don't want bugs in the rooms.
Well.
We have ants in Arizona. They come easily, right? Like you can get ants so easily here that you have to be strict.
But I know how to target ants. So,
well, good.
Every time you see an ant within a foot of your house or 5 feet, you eradicate them.
Using what?
Liquid ant bait. Works perfectly. Except for with ants in Arizona, I bought the new stuff.
That Amdro?
That works really well.
That's what my dad always said to use, Amdro.
Yeah.
I swear that house that we're in is like on a giant ant hill.
Not anymore. We haven't seen any ants in the house in years.
I think we've done a pretty good job.
Since I've been there, they've been gone. Everything's been gone.
You're right.
No giant, water bugs anymore running through the house.
That is, it's not like my house was infested with bugs beforehand.
But
I had a pest control company coming.
But giant water bugs, they're giant water bugs come from outside.
In the summertime.
In the summer, they're single. They're looking for moisture. So you eradicate everything all around your house and inside of your house, and then they don't come back.
I know, but the way you said that, you made it sound like my house was like bug infested before you came.
Your house was not bug infested.
Not the way it was.
But there's bugs in Arizona. There's
wanted to
bugs
be
in
clear.
Arizona, and then if you don't treat your house the right way, the bugs from Arizona will come in. That's what happens.
Yes.
So-
Okay. So back to perspectives.
Yes, and that's my perspective. Your perspective that it was. No, I was kidding.
So how do you think we can learn to see differences not as threats?
I think it can be easy and it can be very difficult at the same time because people have in their minds their thoughts of what is right and for them, and they usually want to impose that on everyone else.
Well, your perspective is so real to you.
Yes.
Right? That is the way you see the world.
Yes.
And it's going to be very difficult to change the way that you see the world. And I think the key here is saying we're not trying to say you should see the world differently, but being able to expand your perspective by listening to other people's perspective. It's kind of
that's
like
what comes
getting,
in, but
it's like
that's-
having a camera on the front of your
Yes,
house.
but that's
if you
what-
just had
go
the
ahead.
camera in the corner, it's only going to see this certain limited
Yes.
view. By adding a second camera, you get a whole other area of coverage of view. And it's not like either camera is telling you a false story, but by taking the two cameras' perspectives together, you get more truth. You get to
Yes.
see a bigger picture.
But
And so when you're talking with somebody else, that's what we're saying is that if you can actually not butt heads with them, but instead just hear what they're saying, you can actually get a wider view.
okay, yes.
Right?
But you have, but
Okay.
that I think that's where they say you have to choose your arguments wisely. Choose what's worth fighting over and what's not.
I kind of see how that's relevant here, although I think sometimes when people hear that, they're just checking out of the argument. They're not actually still actively trying to learn from the other person. And that's what I think we're saying is different.
But I don't think sometimes you can't learn. Sometimes you're in the point in your mental state that you don't want to be taught anything.
I get
So
it.
you have to learn to what is more important. Is it more important than getting into an argument with somebody that you love? Or is it more important just to go, okay, honey, or okay, or if it's the guy, reverse, either way, you know what I mean?
But if you love them, by hearing what they're saying, you will expand and understand more of the way they see the world.
Yes, but
if it's,
Yes.
you're right. If it's just somebody you don't care about, it's just a passing person. You can still learn from their perspective, but maybe it's not worth it. But if it is somebody who's close to you, like your spouse or your family member or your child, it would be worth it. It would be worth your time to hear their perspective and see it from their point of view.
If that was the case,
right?
Then everyone would have a happy family.
That's what we're trying for,
Yeah,
right?
but what I'm saying is the case is
That's not what people do.
no, different personalities, different people, and everybody wants their perspective to be right. That's the problem.
Well, and I think that's where education comes is of realizing is that I have to admit that my perspective is limited.
Yes, it's
Because
limited to
it's
what you
limited
know.
by me.
Yeah, and mine is limited to what I know.
Right.
Exactly.
And I can look at things from my perspective, and no matter how hard I look, I still cannot change without being granted somebody else's perspective. So it's why it's useful and helpful to be able to listen and hear other people's point of view.
But
right?
sometimes
it expands
people
you.
have lived lots of lives into one.
Right, so your perspective is very
And-
wide.
And people's perspective can be wide, it can be shortened, but it also can be jaded. That's the problem.
Yeah,
it
it
can be
filters.
jaded. It can be
Yep,
because whatever happens to you in that life, your now stuff becomes
it
jaded.
starts to color it.
Yes, it gets jaded.
Like in the Inside Out movie, I
Yes.
love that. I
Yeah,
love those
oh,
movies
yeah.
so much, by the way.
Yeah.
When sadness is going through the memory bank,
That's right.
in Inside Out #1, and she's looking at a memory and she's starting to like turn it blue. She's
Yeah.
tainting it.
Yeah.
Because it's true, like depending on the lens that we're looking
Yeah.
through. There's a book that I had read. It was called The Divine Center, I think is what it was called. And it was telling how the only person who has a perfect perspective in all of this is God.
Yes.
And it was a really beautiful book. And the message was that when we reach out to God through prayer and, meditation, that one of the things we can ask for is for him to allow us to see some of his perspective. And it kind of compared it to glasses, like that we're all wearing this pair of glasses. But if we could borrow somebody else's glasses, we see it a little bit differently. Or it also gave an analogy of a map. And it was talking about how our maps are all a little bit skewed. Have you ever seen the movie King and I? Do you remember that really old one? It was a musical.
Are you talking about the one with that Jodie Foster
Siam? No, well, that was a
The
remake.
King and
But
I.
the one I'm remembering is the very old one. It was like a Audrey
Hepburn?
No. Rodgers and Hammerstein is what I was trying to say. It's very old, and it's a musical, and it's brilliant. I love it. But one of the things that when she goes to, I think it's Siam, which they had a map that was created, and Siam looked huge compared to the rest of the world.
Of course, yeah.
And all of our maps are actually, there's a really interesting documentary I once watched with the kids in one of our homeschooling things where it was talking about the way that maps are created, because you're taking something that's three-dimensional and you're smashing it down onto two-dimensional. It's always going to distort.
Yeah.
And that the way that they choose to represent things, it can create distortions in our thinking based on what maps we're looking at. And in the King and I story, this woman coming from, I think, England is coming to teach these Siamese children of the king how to speak English, I think is what she's teaching them. And she sees their map and it's completely distorted to make Siam look really big. And I think that is a really good analogy for perspectives, that when we are living, when we're entrenched in our life, like the things that are surrounding us, like some of the problems we have might look like these big giant mountains because of where we are, but that the reality of them is that they're really not that big if you were looking at them from like God's perspective. And so this idea being that you can pray, you can ask God to help me see your perspective. Let me borrow your map just for a minute so I can kind of see things as they really are and give me a more peace or more of an expanded view.
Well, yeah, because if you think about this, if a person's having trouble buying food, my perspective is not going to be the same as their perspective.
Very different. Yeah.
And I think that we have to understand that everyone has a different perspective of life itself.
Right.
And like I said, it depends on what has jaded you in your life, what has done things to you to hurt you emotionally or mentally. Then it's going to change how you see things. It just does.
And empathy is so important here.
Well, yeah. Well, that's what I learned. What I learned is empathy is the most important thing. If you have empathy, you can understand the plight of anybody else.
Yeah.
When you have no empathy for people, then that's when you only see your side of it, and this is how it should be, and I'm sorry that you're not that way. Too bad.
Yeah.
And that's not what God has. God has empathy for all of us, and we must display empathy for everyone else also.
Well, we're trying, or exercising it, I think, is a good way to think about it, that you're just trying to pause and see it from their point of view. It's something I'll try to teach the kids, especially like Rocky, being a new kid on his football team. There's some kids that, some of it, I think there's some legitimate bullying happening a little bit. And then some of it, I think, is his perspective of feeling this outside sort of feeling. And part of what I've tried to teach him as he counteracts it, because that's so hard. It's just a hard situation as a parent to be in when your kids are struggling at school or on a team or something like that. But one of the things that I felt like was helpful is just say, look, I told him two things. One, I said, Rockwell, just so that you know, all of the times that you feel like people are looking at you and thinking about you, just know they're probably not thinking about you. They're probably thinking about themselves.
Well, and
right?
I will tell you this. Yes.
So focused on
Yes.
themselves. And then the other thing is that just when someone is being really mean and bullying, try to realize that the motivation that they would have for that is to try to make themselves feel better.
And punch them in the nose. No,
So
you can't do that.
I try to, when people are treating me badly, I try to feel sorry for them because that's the way they are. I get to walk away from them and be me, right? But they're stuck.
But usually
in
people
that.
who are treating you bad feel bad about themselves.
Exactly.
That's a fact.
Right.
But also there's a thing where, I've learned, and this is from the programs, where if you walk into a room and you think everyone's talking about you, that's you feeling bad about yourself, and you think that they're projecting on you. When they look at you, they're like, why is he looking at me so mean? And that's really it's all in you.
Yeah, it's all internal.
It's all internal. If you go in there and people look at you and you're like, hey, how are you? Nice to see you. And you don't think that it's easy because, like you said, people are in their own heads.
Yes.
They're in their own heads.
9 times out of 10,
Yes.
they're thinking about them.
The only time that you get you affected is when you walk into a room and you're the only minority and everyone goes, and then you're like,
yeah, it's a little different.
yeah, then you're like, hello. But most of the time, the people that you walk into a room with are having so many emotional issues themselves that they may give you a bad look, but they don't mean, they just, that's how they're feeling about themselves.
About themselves.
Yeah,
It's a more of an indication of them. And there is a lot of projecting that we do,
ton
right?
of it we do.
We project so much on other people and think, oh, that's what they're thinking, or oh, that's what they meant by that, or oh, that.
Well, it was like when I first came into the program, you know, I was constantly walking through the room and I'm projecting how I'm feeling on everyone. I'm like, oh, look at that person. Look at me because I'm in here. Screw him. Blah, blah, blah. Look at him. Yeah, he sucks. Blah, blah, blah. And then what I finally realized was like that they ain't thinking about me. And that's my ego thinking they're thinking about me.
Yeah.
And, you know, in our program, we call ego edging God out because you're not allowing God to be inside of you to say, okay, like, and then with empathy inside of you, you walk in and you go, man, that person must be good. If that person has to look at me like that, he must be dealing with some stuff that's terrible.
He must be hurting.
I feel bad for him. You know what I mean? And go up and make yourself, hey, are you doing okay today? You all right? You know, go up and say something to that person to make them feel, you know, because then you may find out they're not thinking about you, and then it'll help you move yourself further. Like Spencer was not a very outgoing kid. He was not. Spencer was a shy. Like, you see him now, he wasn't that way when he was young. Spencer was a shy kid. But from me and his father being outgoing, he became outgoing. I showed him how to be outgoing, how to, you know, it's okay what, you know, if people don't like you, that's on them. It has nothing to do with you. You know, you have to know who you are inside, you know, and know what kind of person you are to know that people are gonna they may not like you, but it's not because of you. It's because of how they feel about themselves.
Yeah.
And that's generally what it always is about.
You know, and I used to be kind of an impatient person. Like, I hated standing in lines. I hated, you know, waiting. And my mom, it's funny that I'm not anymore. I've gotten a lot better at being patient. But what I grew up with was my mom would sing us this really annoying song. I'm going to sing it right now about being patient. She would sing, be patient, don't be in such a hurry. When you get impatient, then others start to worry. Remember that God has patience too, and think of all the others that have to wait for you. Okay, so I grew up with my mom singing that to me, and I thought it was the most irritating thing in the world.
I think it's a great song.
But I remember I was going through some therapy, and one of the things the therapist had said was to just remember, just look at everybody out there like they're fighting a terrible and a hard battle. Mm-hmm. And if I had that in my mind, that I would see everybody so differently. And I started doing that for a little while, and I remember waiting in a line and starting to feel like that anxious, like frustration of like, oh, this, I think it was like at the post office or something. And you know how those lines can get so long at the post office. Mm. And I started thinking about what I was learning about, you know, seeing everybody in, you know, as somebody that's fighting a terrible and a hard battle. And the words of that song started coming into my mind again that my mom had sang. And I was like, you know what, that song really does put such a fine point on it as you think about all the others who have to wait for you and how God is so patient with all of us in all of our flawed, you know, flawed nonsense that we all have, yet God is so patient with all of us. Anyway, I think that perspective and patience, that it's connected, that we get to have more of these good qualities, these patience, by seeing things from other people's point of view. You
know, I always, you know, the way I look at it is patience is a virtue, and it really is. I have learned that the more patient I am, the better time that I have. It's when I'm trying to rush through something and do something really fast, when things get messed up.
When you're in a hurry.
When you're in a hurry. You know, it's like when I got to go, you know how I am when I got to go to the airport? I want to get there like they said, 2 hours early. You know why? Because then I can stroll up and walk around. If the line is long, you know, security, I'm like,
you don't have to be upset.
Ain't going to bother me. I'm going to get to my plane. And you see people going, you know, and they're like, I don't like to be like that.
Yeah.
I don't want to be stressed out going on somewhere I need to go to either work or vacation. And I have learned that if I just, like if I leave on time to go somewhere, if I'm driving and traffic or people are driving slow, it doesn't bother me because I know I'm going to get to my destination on time.
Yeah.
But it's when you leave late and you don't pay attention when you're mad at everyone else because they're not doing what you think they should be doing to make yourself get somewhere that we should have left earlier in the beginning.
That makes me think of that Carry On movie we just watched finally.
Why does it make you think of that Carry On movie?
Carry On, remember?
Yeah, but why does it make you think of that?
Because of rushing through security line. You were talking about rushing the security line.
Oh, yes.
And I was just thinking about that Carry On movie. It was really
good.
I
have, yeah. That's why I like, you're like, why are you getting there? Because I want to get there and relax.
Did you like that movie, though?
I love the Carry On. It was a great movie.
Yeah.
Great movie.
It was a Christmas movie, but we just finally watched it.
And then we watched Back to Action was great, too. With
Back in Action.
Back in Action with Jamie Foxx and the funny girl. Can't think of her name.
Oh, Cameron Diaz.
Cameron Diaz, yes.
That is a really good movie.
Yeah.
And they set it up for a second one, and I hope they make it. But you said that it didn't do that good.
Well, I was reading it wasn't doing that well, but I'm hoping that word of mouth can spread it and make it do much better.
Go watch Back in Action, so they'll make it
on Netflix. It's great food.
It was
great,
really
funny
good.
Movie. Yep. And to me, it's a great movie for parents with kids.
Yeah.
Because this is exactly what happens with kids. They think you're boring, and they think that you've never lived life. That's what they always think. Kids think that.
It's really interesting. I guess we shouldn't give too much of it away, but I think they developed this plot line pretty early in the movie. But they're getting after their daughter for having a fake ID and sneaking into a club. Yeah. But then they end up having to because they're ex-CIA, so they end up having to flee, and they have all these fake passports. And her daughter's like, they were mad at me for having a fake ID. Yeah. But here they are with fake. It's such a cute movie.
It's a very cute movie.
But that's an interesting perspectives thing, right? Their kids had been so well protected, they had no idea.
Well, here's the thing.
Yeah.
If you do drugs, how are you going to tell your kids not to do drugs? If
Right.
you're actively doing drugs and they see you actively doing drugs and you say, don't do drugs, they're going to look at you like, but you doing them.
How did you explain to your kids about it? I mean, you got to say learn by example.
Oh,
right?
yeah. I said, don't do drugs, and I showed them why. This is going to happen to you, and I know this is going to happen to you because it happened to me, and it's going to happen to you too.
Right.
I explained that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying today, the advantage the kids have, you can show them. If you don't work hard and try to make yourself money, you're going to end up like this. If you don't get a good education or be smart, do good things at work. If you don't take care of your body, you're going to have this. You're going to have this. It's like, okay, here's the thing. You don't take care of your body, you're going to have all these. See all these and all this one. And then you're going to have this one. And,
You know what?
And that's because I was doing things off the rail. I wasn't protecting myself.
So I think that it's nice that we do have some of these, everybody's got a phone in their pocket. We have social media to share. It's so much easier to share your perspective with other people, right?
Are you learning it as much as it was when we had to actually look it up and read it and read through it? And that's the thing about, you remember when I grew up, I don't know about you, but when I grew up, it was if you wanted to know something or a word.
We already talked about that.
No, I'm just saying that you had to go get an encyclopedia to get it. Today, kids get it on the thing. So their perspective is swayed by what they see.
Well, and definitely.
And most videos are fake.
I think their perspectives are definitely different because they feel like it comes so easily.
Yes.
Yeah. And they're definitely swayed too by the prevalence. I think on social media you can see something and feel like it's so much more common than it actually is.
I'm swayed by a video and you go, that video was 5 years ago, and I'm like, huh? And I have to look at it, and it is. But that's how our perspective changes. We see things and we think, oh my gosh, this is happening right now, and it's not.
The sources.
So the problem is with this fast media or fast stuff today, your perspective gets swayed by something that may not even be real. It could be an AI video for all we know now. Things are so good now where the AI, it looks real. So I think it's a better opportunity talking with people. to be able to weigh, to be able to weigh your perspective than it is from actually looking it up on a video.
All right. Before we finish, I want to talk about one thing.
No.
A tool.
Oh, go ahead.
It was a tool that a therapist once had me learn to do, and
Do you
it's
trust
called
that
active.
therapist?
Yes.
Are you still with that therapist? Then I don't think
I
can
don't
do
think so. I think this was an older one.
Then I
It was
don't
called
trust it.
active listening. Have
Okay.
you ever heard of active listening?
I've heard of it. Go ahead. You practice.
Okay. Do you know how it works?
I forgot.
Okay. So
'Cause I only
basically,
listen when I want to.
what?
I only listen when I want to.
So active listening is a good tool to use when you're in a disagreement, especially with your spouse.
Okay. Oh.
Not that ever happens for us.
Go ahead, honey.
And
I'm
what
active
it,
listening.
what it requires you to do is to listen so well to what the other person is saying because you're going to repeat it back to them.
It's listening so
Without-
well what the person is saying because you're going to repeat it back to them. See, I was active listening.
But you cannot editorialize.
But you cannot
and add
editorialize
any opinion or
and add
anything
any
like that.
opinion. Okay.
You're literally just mirroring it back to them, but you have to say it in your own words.
Okay.
So you can't just like memorize and like a robot repeat it back. You receive the information from them and you repeat it back
Okay.
without
So you want
changing
to try
it.
a test study? Okay. You want
Okay,
to try it? See,
so-
we're test bunnies. Go ahead. You start.
So before we started recording this podcast, you were saying that I have a very difficult time seeing anything from your point of view.
You have a very difficult time before the broadcast started of seeing anything from my point of view.
That's not exactly what I said.
Well, you said I'd say it in my own words.
Well, hold on. Let me give you the rest of the rules too. Okay, so first you're listening really well, and then you're going to mirror back what they said in your own words without editorializing or adding anything. And when you're done with that, you say, "Did I get it?"
Okay.
And they get to say yes or no.
Okay.
And then if they say no, they get to explain how you didn't get it right.
Further elaborate. Okay.
To try to, and then you repeat again.
Okay.
And say, "Did I get it?" And they say yes or no. And then if they say yes, you got it, then you have to say, "Is there more?" And invite them to talk more.
That's too much time.
Yeah,
Go
so
ahead.
you don't get to give your perspective for a long time. You have to be
Okay.
quiet and just
All right.
keep. And then once they finally say, and they say, "Is there more?" And they say no, then the idea is that they've now feel fully understood by you.
Let me get my lips all moist before this happens. Okay, go ahead. Go
So
ahead.
now they feel fully understood by you
Okay.
before you add any editorializing or any commentary or
Gotcha.
any opinion. And then you get to take your turn and they don't get to say anything.
Ooh, that'd be-
Okay, so that's how it works. It's actually
Okay.
very difficult.
Okay, go ahead. Try it.
Okay. Well, I was trying to come up with a topic that we could do this about. Let me see. Okay, so
I was trying to come up with a topic that we can do this about. So, I just repeated back everything you said, see?
so you have to say, "Did I get it?"
Did I get it?
Yes.
Okay.
And now what do you say?
Thank you.
Is there more?
Is there more?
Is there more? Yes, there's more.
Okay. Please
So-
explain. Please elaborate.
So before we started recording the podcast,
Yes.
you were saying that, and see, you're not trying to repeat it word for word. That's why you can listen to the whole thing and just take the gist, okay? So before we started recording the podcast, you were trying to say that I always want things my way and that I am inflexible, that I am controlling and I cannot.
I didn't say controlling. Did not
So
use
you
that
just
word.
failed
Yeah, but
at your
sorry.
active listening. You cannot do that.
Okay, so let
You
me try
have to
again.
repeat
Go-
back.
Let's start over again. Go again. Okay, go again.
Okay. So before we started recording this podcast, you had said that I am really bad at seeing things from anybody else's point of view and that I can only see it from my point of view. And I disagreed and said that I'm actually very good at trying to see things from other people's point of view and that you are actually the one that is very bad at seeing from anybody else's point of view.
So it's the fact that I said that you're really bad at hearing things, no matter at the point of view. You're really bad at. I'm really bad at that, and you are really bad at that, and that actually I'm the one that's really bad at that. Is there more?
No, did I get
No,
it?
did I get it? Did I get it?
No, you slaughtered it.
Well,
Try again.
is there more? No, you said that I am really bad at hearing.
Maybe
no,
instead of
that
saying
you are-
I
oh,
or you,
yes.
say the person's
Okay,
name so we can be clear.
That Bettijo is really bad at hearing anything from anyone else's point of view, and that in response to that, I'm the one
That you,
that,
Todd.
that you, Todd, is the one that's really bad at hearing any other people's thoughts like that. Did I get it right?
Yes, that was closer.
Is there more?
Kind of. So I feel like it's that you're actually projecting onto me something that you're doing. That's what I feel like.
You feel that I'm projecting on you of what you're doing. That's what I feel. Okay, now, here's mine. So get ready.
I'm not sure we can move on because
Foremost.
I don't feel fully understood yet.
Foremost, I never said every single thing. That's foremost. I never said that. It's certain things you have strong opinions about and you will not flex. I get that. And I have learned to deal with that. It's like, okay, well, she won't flex from this part, but she'll flex over here. I've learned that. And that's just learning about husbands and wives, where they're flexible and where they're not flexible.
See, so how interesting.
It's like if I decided to hang a picture up in the middle of the house that you did not like, would it happen?
That was not going to fly.
You see, there you go. That's what I'm saying. There you go. There you go. I just caught it.
But that is interesting that by slowing down and forcing us to listen, I saw the shift. You changed what you said a little bit because you changed
I
and
needed
said,
for you to understand it.
yeah,
That's why.
you changed and you said that it's more that I have strong opinions about certain things, not about everything.
Yes.
And that's the key difference.
Yes, it
now
is.
I don't disagree with you anymore.
Yes. And it's because, like me, mine is all about safety.
Right.
I'm all about safety.
So we have to like add a bunch of deadbolts and put up cameras and do a bunch of things
Well, because there are crazy people out there, and I know that.
And do you know what really makes relationships work, I think? Is recognizing when something is a hard and fast for the one person and it's not so much for you so you can give.
Yes.
Like that's how you
key.
that's the key
Yes.
is saying, okay, this is something I feel hard and fast about. You're going to have to flex and give here because this is so important to me. And being able to do that make those judgment calls yourself as saying, you know what, this is so important to him that I'm just gonna yield here because I don't care as much as he cares.
Well, even with now, when it comes to like, even when I get my own office, I know that I'll be able to put pictures up, but I know that you're going to be in charge of the furniture. You're going to be in charge because I know how you are when it comes to that.
Well, because I like things to look nice, and I'm a designer, so I have I feel very strongly about those things.
And I'm just, lock the door when you come in. The kids are good at it now, so I'm good with that.
They're being trained.
Rocky locks me out. I'm like, Rocky, hey, let me back in.
I just went out to the mailbox, man.
Because I truly know what could happen and what's out there. That's the only reason why.
Well, I'm not sure if this example of active listening was going to be
Well,
the best
no,
for
it
people,
was a good
but
example.
it actually is a helpful tool.
It is.
I recommend it.
But I think that active listening sometimes it's
forcing you to slow down and see their point of view. That's what it's doing.
And I think that can be tough for some of us. We love our wives' point of views, but theirs are a little bit skewed.
And actually, when I first learned this active listening tool, we did it with a therapist there.
Did you
They
really?
were basically like a referee and be like, nope, you can't say that right now.
Oh, wow.
And then that is helpful too. Okay. So,
well, that was good. That was actually a good subject matter. But you didn't do active listening on me.
Oh, you want to take a turn?
Oh, wow.
I'm really good at active listening. Let's try it. Yes. Okay, go ahead. It's hard to think of something you want to vent, actually, that for public consumption.
Loca la cabeza el picho maricón.
I can't reflect that back because I don't know what you said.
She didn't listen. You were supposed to repeat the words back. No, kidding.
That's the idea.
I'm just kidding. I don't have anything for active listening.
You have a really good laugh. It is very contagious.
Spencer's is too, though. Spencer's is just like mine. All right.
Well, dang.
Dang. Thank you for so much for coming, and we'll be back. This podcast is produced by my wife, Bettijo Bridges, in collaboration with Pop Populi, and edited by our daughter, Adelie Ann.
She is also the musician responsible for our theme music, so go check out Adelie Ann wherever you stream your music. Have a question or topic you want us to cover? Send us your suggestions at dangpodcast.com.
If you would do me a quick favor, please subscribe or rate our podcast to make it easier for others to find. Have a great week.
I'm running on nothing but faith. This thing's far too great